Hey everyone, welcome to this next round of IMSA where we're now at Road America. This is a great track for the multi-class racing we're going to be doing today, and we're going to be up against quite a few Ferraris, which are the popular pick. I've stuck with the 963 because it's just a very comfortable car for me with lots of traction in the rear, and we'll see how that compares against the Ferrari fans, especially the one in front of us, Jules, who's running a very low downforce setup. I saw him setting quite some fast speeds in qualifying, so we'll see how that works out for him in the race. Looks like I'm going to be starting pretty close to the guy in second. The guy who's meant to be alongside me is a bit far back. So as we get underway here with a great start, we're actually going to end up side by side with Ole in the other Ferrari. But look at Jules just pulling away from us on this straight. I'm at least going to have the inside into turn one, so as long as I don't make a mistake, we're going to hold a position. And Ole actually tries to carry a bit more speed than we do, and they go off, joining Jules. I avoid the rejoin, and that puts us up into P2 right behind Jules, who is now going to go off the track once again, underestimating that understeer on the first lap. And I'm now right close to him, but that's not going to make any difference. He's weaving, trying to get temperature in and pulling away from me. Just how fast is that Ferrari in the straight line? But that's going to come at a cost, as we'll see in just a moment, as he goes wide again on this corner, and he's slow on the rejoin, so I'm going to dive to that inside. I want this position now before we get to this twisty infield section. And now I'm up to the lead of the race, and Jules is stuck behind me, still struggling on the cold tyres, whilst I have a lot more confidence and aero, which I need to use right now whilst I have that advantage to try and build the gap. But Jules is still doing very good. He runs a bit wide. We're now entering this long right carousel. Lots of understeer here. I have to be very patient getting on the power to not go off the track. Just about nearly, just keeping it in the track limits, and we pull a nice little gap to Jules behind us, because I can now be flat through the king, whilst he's going to be having to have a big old lift behind me. But now he's opening the throttle as we're running down towards Canada corner. Big braking zone, great overtaking opportunity. You're going to see a lot of action here in the race, and Jules has closed the gap a little bit. Now I need to try and emphasize the gap once again, coming through this twisty section into the last corner of the track. And Jules is closed up to about 4/10 now, actually getting a very good run through there, which is what I didn't want to see if I'm going to hold this place into the first corner. He's closing up rapidly. Just look at the onboard. He is so fast in a straight line. I can't contest that, but I still defend because I can keep that inside line as I open up the corner, brake as late as I can, and now tightly hold that inside line. There's just enough space between us, and I have a bit of a moment on the exit, getting the power down, but we are still just close enough so I can send it into this next corner, because I don't want him to settle in. I don't want him getting a good exit, because I need to stay close to him in this run down to the next corner, because this is a big straight. He does look a bit to the inside, even though I've got it covered off, and he's now around the outside a lot faster than I am, but I was now close enough to get back to the inside, very confident on the braking, making sure I leave the space and get on the power now just to hold my position. This is exactly what I need to keep doing until I can build that gap into turn one. Now I have a better run this time because my tyres are a bit better up to temperature, but so Jules is, and he's definitely still got some skill in him to keep that Ferrari with the less downforce it's carrying pinned to the back of me. This long carousel though is definitely the weakest part for him. I have a much better run this time round, still having to be patient getting on the power, but I can carry a lot more speed this time, and Jules is gapping behind me. He's going to get a lot braver though coming through the kink. I'm obviously flat through here, and I guess he tries to go flat because he runs very far wide onto the grass, which completely removes all of the momentum he's been carrying out of there. And I get a nice easy run into Canada corner, but I seem to still be struggling a bit here because you can see Jules closes up under braking, and I do get a greater exit using the traction of the Porsche, but it's just not enough. It's all going to come down to this last corner now as we're entering the big straight. I need a great exit coming out of here to start building that gap, and we're going to get it, but it's just not going to be enough. That's only 5/10 between me and Jules, so you can see he's already closing up on me. He's got a lot better traction this time, his tyres getting into that operating window, so I'm still going to have to defend once more. There's a little bit of a tap between us, but I'm still here on the inside, holding him there to the outside, and I'm going to keep that position and now defend into the next corner, but I do move back over sync. I've got enough space here so I can prioritize my own exit, which is going to be so crucial. Jules is definitely going to be getting frustrated at this stage, and I now have a better gap than I did before, so I'm going to have a better chance of holding that inside line. Jules once again looks to the inside and then is to the outside, but he brakes so late. He just about keeps on track, but there's a moment. I hold the position and then there's contact between the two of us. Oh dear. This isn't Jules's fault, just to clarify. This is definitely a racing incident because I could have given more space, but in the heat of the moment, I thought he was going much further off than he seemed to actually be going and didn't anticipate that snap he had, which is what sent him into the side of my car, along with a little bit of netcode just to make sure I didn't have any sort of survivable incident. In the end, I'm going to get knocked off and lose a number of positions. Thankfully, though, I didn't lose too many because there had been an incident on the first lap which took out a good number of GTPs. So looking back, it could have definitely been a lot worse. I do have some damage. You can see the rear right there is a little bit banged up, but it was still manageable to keep driving. So I'll now just try and rejoin as safe as I can. Everyone does well to let me get back on the track. Back in the car now, and you can see we're down to P9 on the standings. Could have been a lot worse had there not been that other incident, but thankfully the car was still very drivable, so I could get to work on catching up to the next group of cars in front of me. The first one was going to be here with Nuno, who might have been a bit new to the car or just driving them here at Road America. There are a lot of heavy braking zones here, and if you're not prepared for how you have to deal with them in the Porsche, which does understeer, doesn't quite want to get the nose in on them, then you might struggle a bit. And I think that's what was happening to him because I caught up to him quite quickly, so I was wondering if he might have damage or if he just might be a bit newer to these cars. It's going to see he goes quite deep here. I back off the throttle trying to give space, but he still spears a bit further to the left than I anticipated. Thankfully no contact between us, and that's the first position back I needed. And now I could get to work on catching up to the next two drivers, who, as you can see here, are having a bit of a fight going on, which is going to work to my benefit in catching up to them a little bit quicker. We also ended up catching up to the GT3s, and though there weren't as many in this split during the week, we still had a fair few to get past. My focus at this point was just sticking with these two guys and seeing if there was going to be any sort of opportunity that might make an easy pass. But my priority was just going to be surviving this first pass through the GT3s while they're all still clumped together. So I'm just watching and anticipating what they're going to be doing. We see the green Ferrari forces the door open on that Aston Martin and then suddenly swings to the left as Coleman's getting very racy behind him. They're going side by side into this next left turn. There's contact and Coleman comes off a bit worse on the exit. I'm going to back off here because I just want to focus on the run around the carousel, because I would love to clear these two GT3s before the kink, but that's just not going to happen here. So now I need to start thinking ahead. How are these two going to check up as we're coming towards the kink? Now this green Aston, Coleman's going to back off it, and I nearly get caught out by that. Really having to slow up myself, but we're going to get through okay. And I only lose a little bit of time to the Coleman. That's going to come back, so we can see there's still more GT3 traffic in front of us. That's what I love though when it comes to this multi-class racing. You have to be so aware. Coming up to the kink, and it looks like Coleman's going to back off through here. Good move on his part if he's not confident doing that, but he then goes to the outside, which then complicates the last corner. So I back off a bit, give the GT3 some breathing space to see what direction they're going. They seem to go to the right, so I go to the left, though that Mustang nearly comes across into me. Maybe not sure what direction I was going, but thankfully there was no problem in the end. I've only lost a temple 2 to the two guys. I know I'm going to get that back, especially we can see there's still yet more traffic ahead of us as we're into turn 1. The Ferrari's not going to be an issue for me because I'll clear him on the exit. And you can see they are still going side to side, trying to battle and clear the GT3 traffic, which is just, again, slowing them down so much rather than just focusing on getting through the traffic. Only really taking an opportunity if one of them makes a mistake. I'm right up beneath them now, and I can sort of feel like there could be an incident, so I back up a bit, give them space into this next corner and just follow them through, staying to the left hand side, so we do have the GT3 traffic on our outside. And we're going to get past them and move back across, just so I'm on the racing line and not going to slow them up any further. And as we come towards this right kink, it's going to be a repeat of last time, because Coleman seems to do really well around this corner. He forces Pinto on the defensive and tries to hold him there before moving back across. He does a lot better this time getting side by side, but once again he just can't make it work around the outside, and I have to try and back off a bit and tuck back in behind him. And now we are low, at least coming up to the last of the GT3 traffic. You can see that's P4 ahead of us. But once again, it's going to be through this next right kink, so I back off a bit, expecting them to be slow in front of me, and I'm watching what Coleman's going to be doing as he comes across in front of me, and I just make sure I have time getting on the power and now stick close to him so we can stay down the inside of this Aston GT3. Going to get past him, no problem, but once again we've now got P2 and P1 in front of us. I'm going down the inside though because I'm much more confident, and I know all I need to do is just dab the brake a little bit. As long as I can keep it tight, that's not an issue. P1 also seems to brake a little bit earlier there, knowing that I'm going down his inside following the two cars, but that is at least the last of the GT3s, which means I can start fighting these two guys to get past them, because we have definitely lost some time to the leaders. Into this turn, and you can see the difference in braking. I think Coleman was obviously a bit slowed up by Pinto, but I was able to really close the gap. And now I'm anticipating that Coleman, if he's going to be attacking Pinto, he might make the same mistake as last time. So I'm going to be thinking I want to be in the right position to focus on that exit and get past him before the carousel. I'm a lot closer, and Coleman knows it, so he's now going to go defensive on me, which means I'm not likely going to get him unless he makes a big mistake going deep. He's going to keep it on the track, but he is going to go over a lot of stones, and we're going to see the effect that has on him, because he's going to end up washing really wide, just understeer from his dirty tyres. I've managed to avoid them though, so I can stay on the power and still get down his inside and clear him before we even get to the king. That was the sort of opportunity I'd been talking about. Coleman went wide with those dirty tyres, and just being in the right place, I was able to capitalise on that. Hats off to Coleman, he didn't try to complicate things, knowing that he'd had that issue, and we were able to get the position and start working on Pinto, who also needs some credit, because when you look at his iRacing, he is really going above and beyond what you'd expect of him. But on lap 12, we're going to start looking to make the move before we start getting towards that crucial pit stop phase. I've still got Coleman behind me, keeping me company, but he's basically been biding his time, knowing I could create an opportunity he might also get through on whilst I'm trying to make the move. Pinto struggles through this section. I think that's just the inundated part of the Ferrari, where it does tend to understeer through some of these mid-speed corners. Here, there's some gravel on the track as well, which is definitely not going to help him coming through the long right carousel. I cut underneath, just trying to get free air over the front of the Porsche. I don't get any sort of dirty air understeer, and you can see the difference that gives me on the exit. I'm going to back off, use the brake a little bit because I want to be nice and close, looking to make the move now into Canada corner, staying right up behind Pinto. Now gonna see which way he goes. I'm now to the outside, gonna brake a bit later, but Pinto brakes even later, and that just simply opens up an easy undercut for me, and we're gonna get the position now up into P5. It was a spirited defense by Pinto, I have to give him that, but he just really overestimated the braking capability of the Ferrari. That just simply opened the door for me to cut underneath him. And Coleman, he almost could have done the same, but he just keeps it a bit too tight, which compromises the exit, and he doesn't quite get up as close as I did on Pinto. After that, the next few laps, I just started getting down to some fuel targets, trying to save a little bit each time, whilst I still had Pinto right behind me. Then on lap 13, this was going to be an interesting moment in the race. There's LMP2 traffic ahead, so I figured I want to get into the pits now, but look how slow this LMP2 is in front of me. He really doesn't know where the braking line is there, and we nearly going right into the back of him. Thankfully, I realized just how quick I was closing up on him, that he was just so slow. Maybe a good sign in future, you need to practice your pit entries, but nevertheless we carry on. And on lap 15 we're catching up towards Ollie, whilst we do have Coleman behind us, but we're going to get gifted a position, because as we come around the corner, there's Ollie, who gets a bit of a tap by that LMP2, who sends it back into the wall. Unfortunately, it looked like he just really came in a bit too hot there. The rear end of the car came around. Thankfully, the side is there to stop him, but as he tries to rejoin, that LMP2 just goes wide, and there's some netcode contact which sends him back into the barrier. That's put us up another position, and Coleman also benefited from that. He's doing well to keep with me, about a second gap difference. But on to lap 17, and this was going to be a very deciding moment for me in the race, something I'm not going to enjoy looking back on, but I've got to show you it because this is a deciding moment that cost me the win overall. We get past the Mercedes, but I just missed my braking point and tapped the back of the Aston. Because I'm so heavily on the brakes on the front of the car, the rear just slips free. Thankfully, we didn't get any damage, but that was really going to cost me a lot of time, because you'll see Coleman gets past there, a nice easy one for him. Thankfully, on board with the Mercedes, you can see he takes some avoiding action to not hit me. So that really prevented taking any sort of serious damage apart from my ego. Coleman got a nice clean pass, putting him up to P3 where we had been. I didn't give up though, because we were going to get some good news the next corner. Just after that, we can hear there Dot has been in an incident, and as we come around the corner, there he is, struggling to rejoin. A rather unfortunate one for him, considering that I didn't really blame him for that early incident too much. But coming around the corner here, it's his same issue again, where he just carries too much speed and he's got no rear wing on that Ferrari, so it spins around on him. On board, you can see as well, he's really swinging at that steering wheel, trying to force the turning going on. And to make matters worse, this GT3 Merc comes around the corner and just slams into the front of him, even though he's sat there stationary. No fault of his own there, and I don't know if the GT3 driver could have really avoided that, but I think they could have certainly made the effort. And that impact had ruined his steering as well, just to make matters worse. So as he tried to come around that next right-hand corner, the car just wouldn't turn, and into the tyre barrier he went, ending his race. Back to us though, and we have now got Ole back with us. He's recovered from that early incident, and he's looking to see if he can try and make a move onto me, and he's going to get helped through the carousel because I caught back up to those two GT3 cars we saw earlier, and I'm going to get past the Mercedes, but I can see straight away I'm not going to clear the Aston coming through the kink, so I try and time it to perfection without losing too much momentum, but I'm still a bit too fast. And here comes Ole with a lot more momentum than I had. I moved to the outside, covering off that inside corner, and then brake on my mark to try and make a nice exit coming out of here, so he's not going to be able to get an overlap for me coming out into this next twisty section. And I'm trying to now just make sure I'm going to focus on getting that exit out to the final corner. The GT3 will help me a little bit here because I'll be able to use a little bit of his slipstream just to pull me back a bit further, but I wasn't going to need it because Ole made a bit of a mess coming out of that last one. Our next bit of luck was going to be this. Unfortunately, Florian, who had been running clean in P1, has this moment coming through that right-hand corner, going wide and catching that bump, which completely threw off the car. I've gone through that bit myself and never had that sort of snap, so I was pretty surprised when I finally got to see the replay. And we can see the damage that has caused to his left quarter, completely throwing off the rear grip, and that cost him a load of time. Coleman wasted no time himself in catching up to Florian and started to really put some pressure on. Seeing the damage to his car, he probably figured he wanted to get past him as soon as possible, but Florian wasn't going to have any of it. He still had a lot of fight left in him, and his Porsche was still fast in a straight line because they go side by side down the entire start-finish straight. But eventually into turn one, Coleman has the inside line, so he's going to get the position on Florian, who is left nursing his wounds for the next few laps before I eventually managed to catch up to him. And I didn't know at the early stage that what had happened with Florian. I just knew that his pace had fallen off a bit, and then seeing that damage when I finally caught up to him, I figured he's probably been struggling with that rear end like I had been doing earlier in the race myself. But I knew that meant that the car was still going to be quite drivable because the Porsche is just so stable and has a lot of traction left to spare, where even when you have damage, you can still get some good pace out of it. We do only have 2 laps left in the race though, and I'm caught out a little bit there that Florian's braking a fair bit early now to compensate for the damage that his car is carrying. I'm going to keep that in mind as we go into these next few corners, but I'm also going to start planning how I want to get past him, because this is our battle for P2 now. There's no one else in contention, so it's just me and Florian. We've got some GT3 traffic though into this corner, so I'm just going to follow him into it, being mindful he's going to brake a bit early, but we do just about avoid going into the back, and maybe could have been a bit earlier in the brakes. Really have to anticipate how this guy is driving and plan accordingly, because I don't want to compromise our race by potentially getting damaged myself getting past him. And I can see that Florian, whilst he is struggling with the braking, he is still fast elsewhere, maybe running a bit less downforce than what I am in my setup. Through the carousel, this will be a good tell of how much that damage is affecting him. I'm taking caution myself because this is where I'm feeling a lot of that dirty air, which is causing understeer in my own car. But I'm still close enough as we're on the run into the kink. We're going to see now how the slipstream might try and pull me closer, and there could be a move on into Canada Corner. Watching which side he's going to, he's not going to defend it, so I'm going to take that inside line with a bit of a dive Going to keep it now tight, expecting him to run around the outside, but he just doesn't seem to have that same drive out the corner, so we're going to get the position up into P2. Now just need to hold him off through these penultimate corners before finally getting to that last corner, and now getting a good exit out of here is going to be crucial, but I just about get it, and Florian washes a bit wide at the end there, and we're going to get enough space to come across the line one lap later in P2 with a good result from that recovery drive, but a little bittersweet considering that I might have been on for a battle for P1 even after that incident with Jules, which when I look back I fully accept that was a racing incident between us. He just didn't really have control of the car as he was trying to rejoin, and I certainly could have left him more space to do so safely, but it is what it is, and at least carrying on, hopefully it's given you guys a good show that you can still recover in some of these long races by just keeping your nose clean. And with all that off my chest, that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and subscribe, because that really helps me on the channel, and I hope to see you all again next time.